Welcome, welcome. So I made some efforts to slowly speak, to watch some lectures on the Mediterranean Sea in the region. So we're going to talk about that by going through some images from these lectures. Okay, pardon me, sir, I'll maybe... Okay, so this is just some, I believe fault lines, or... I believe fault lines. Here's the actual fault lines. Maybe those are like smaller fault lines, the red ones. These are more major fault lines. So this is notable here. The way that is when so we're gonna compare. Let's open. Did I do it? I guess to this. So we kind of, the way this is, kind of feels relatively valid. Also here, that there's this. Let's keep going though. Everything in this seems generally to line up with what we've been talking about. Okay, this says Mesozoic. Subduction zones, major thrust and strike slip faults. And then this is Mesozoic oceanic crust. The Baltic Sea, Caspian Sea, and the eastern Mediterranean, specifically where this eddy is and in the regions that it's getting fed by, as well as out here. None of this yet, I guess. I'm not sure if that's being accounted for, but in the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea region. So then we get Cenozoic oceanic crust over here. So this came before the eastern portion of Mediterranean and the seas came before the Cenozoic oceanic crust. Which kind of gives me the impression that like the current's flowing generally laminarly until it runs into the opposing current, and the closer it gets to the opposing current, the more turbulent it becomes, and the more the two currents like approach each other, the more they enter this transitional interaction zone that it's spread. The effects get so turbulent as to actually create ocean crust at that time, and then it kind of expands backward and through the Mediterranean. And then shortening. So I guess these regions compacted. I can't remember now. Neogene, let's just confirm when that is. 23 to 2.6. Okay, I was thinking 23, but I was thinking the Miocene. I don't know. But 23 to 2.6, somewhere in there, this shortening is occurring. And then extension. Extension gives me the impression that the pressure is relieving, and things that were getting compacted together are able to kind of landslide out to a more stable equilibrium that then equals neogene extension. So maybe there was some like final compaction stage in the neogene, and then the water actually was able to drain out enough for it to begin to relieve the pressure in the region. Mesogene Ocean Jurassic spreading. Notice where that is. So the oldest ocean crust is here, where this eddy formed. So it's almost like this eddy formed first. The current came in, formed the eddy, which led to essentially ocean floor forming here by this cross current interacting with this current that was like amplifying here along this stretch when they're going the same direction, kind of additively etching into the ground, which etched to the point of reaching the depth of the crust so that magma could fill the space between as newly forming ocean crust at that time. And then the pressure buildup, where back here later on was able to begin to etch this more. Like maybe it was flowing atop it initially, and out here generally following similar paths as it began to etch it, but really not reaching a point of ocean floor depth until later. The shape is a little odd because it kind of seems like the current just flowed and it didn't actually cut between. It just kind of removed the material so that the ocean floor was exposed that was beneath the material. It's basically a layer. Like it's pretty much like this, like atop it. So if we remove enough of the top layer, we'll expose the bottom layer. If enough is removed. Generally, it's more like this, where it's not all removed, but maybe over here it just had enough current and turbulence to just etch into sort of how this etched in like a spiral into. Okay, so let's go back here. So oceanic crust early on Jurassic, which ends 145. I think it is like 200 to 145, 201 to 145 is when this starts to spread. Late Cretaceous abductions, a suture zone. Let me read this. I wrote something about this. I know I wrote something about this. Adria Apulia. Adria Apulia, a continental block that detached from Africa somewhere in the Mesozoic. Somewhere in the Mesozoic, this block, Italy and up here and down here, was attached to Africa, detached from it, and seemingly reattached up here. I'm not so sure that it was detached from Europe. Maybe it extended out and was connected kind of in a similar way to how this is. Maybe it's more like this. Connected across. Like across here to here, and then it like bowed it out. I don't know. That might explain why all these volcanoes are right here. I was just watching a video about why one of the videos here was about this place. I'm also hearing it might a super volcano that might erupt. I doubt it will be super volcano potency even if it erupted. Same for the Long Valley in California. That there are new like steam vents. It's like, okay. Okay, let's go back to this though. Yeah. So late Cretaceous, I mean, then we talk about late Cretaceous, 65 million. He shows later late Cretaceous with the date 85 million. So it's unclear what exactly late Cretaceous entails. I usually see it as approaching the end date of 66 million. So I'm not sure if like it's going on around that time as well or what, but late Cretaceous, okay. I guess I took 2 images of this. Back arc basins in there. So I guess let's check out the back arc basins. Up there. Basin. What exactly is a back arc basin? Basin formed behind a collision zone where volcanic front exists, or some kind of, maybe not volcanic, unclear. Probably not volcanic. Okay, not that important. Some basins. Okay. Volcanism. So this is relatively of note. Volcanism started 35 million down in around the Red Sea in Africa, moved through the Arabian Peninsula to Turkey, and then over this way, I think. 35 million to 10 million radiometric dating. So there's some kind of motion of a current going this way that maybe goes this way and around this way. Like we'll see. So 170 million. Not okay. This is the Tethys Ocean. So there's India. Future dynamic ophiolites. So some ophiolite in Europe. $95 million to late Cretaceous even puts 95 million here. Actually, I thought it says 85. I guess some degrees of rifting. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the domain of erosion, I guess, over there and there. Erosion and erosion, which is where the water's flowing out, like across here and out this way to the coast and western coastline that way, and then also down the East African Rift down to here, so, and that's where it flows out. It's not just flowing along the surface here, it starts to flow into the ocean bed, and as a result, I guess it erodes more in those locations because it starts to have more momentum downward, enough to achieve in like way beforehand the like essentially the speed is able to pick up as it's kind of like going through a traffic jam, and then you reach the end, and everyone's going back to full speed, going downhill. So there's this like cars picking up speed in front of you thing, which then leads to more etching of these locations going on, I guess, in the late Cretaceous, related to the opening of the ocean bed, probably like out into the crevice, where it then helps it expand the Earth. Late Cretaceous 80 million. He's got flows across that way. Compression active. I'm not sure what the arrows are for. I don't want to say they're flows, because that would basically, as well as these, if those arrows are flows, then that would corroborate what I've been saying. If they're compression, then caused by flows coming up, like in the inverse, where flow is flowing off here, flow is ramping up here, which then like compresses the location, I guess. And over here, compressing, because it does, I guess it flows this way. Or at least somewhere here it's flowing back this way, and then with a boundary to here flowing this way. So maybe it goes over this way and back, some of it extending along and doing this. I don't know. I'm not sure why I would do that if it was flowing in, though. Because of a current going this way, that just causes the current to go off that way as well as that way. Like some of it goes this way, leading to a wall forming. Looks very parallel to like there. And then bends, I don't know. But it looks like it flows this way. And then, does it flow that way? Or is it just compressing because it's so short of a distance that it doesn't even have time to gain momentum, so it more so compresses this region? Whereas over here, it has much more time to flow from over here, I don't know. And over here as well to flow this way, and down here. Let's just carry on. Let's see if there's any more of those compression things. Nope. Okay, now we got some more compression there. There, maybe let's go back here. I wasn't paying all that much attention to how this is forming because it's under plate tectonics, so some of the spacing between is maybe... I guess it was like this, like the Tethys Ocean formed initially as a gaping hole that formed as the Tethys Ocean, that then later expansion to the next phase, maybe in the Permian, it formed the Tethys. I don't know when the Tethys formed. When did the Tethys Ocean form? That existed from the end. When did it form? Paleotethys Ocean. When did this form? If any of this goes back to like 600 million years, maybe, then maybe it was just a pre-existing ocean if it goes back to 600 million years. But I don't think the ocean located Gondwana started to open during the Middle Cambrian. So when the Earth started to expand. Yeah. When the Earth started to expand, the Tethys Ocean was the first like gaping hole that had formed in the ocean, in the Earth. And then a layer of oceanic crust formed, and water was able to pool there and like interacted with the waters on top of continents, probably releasing more water than could actually fit on the continents. But then the Tethys Ocean existed as a basin that the rest of the continents like were able to somewhat drain water into, but it wasn't enough, so it continued to etch more boundaries until the continents broke up. And so it made the Tethys Ocean do something like that as it opened even larger to compact the other side in a way where it closed the Tethys Ocean and then stabilized in a more permanent equilibrium. Maybe it didn't go exactly like that. Like it's because the Tethys went basically at like maybe a 90-degree angle relative to how the Pacific formed. Maybe. Or even less than 90. Not sure what the relative angle of the Tethys would have been when the Earth was expanding. Okay, let's just go on. So that's definitely going on, though, that the Tethys formed first, and then its contraction played a role in the forming of the Himalayas. Let me go back a little bit. So we got 45. Ophiolite, end of abduction. So yep, okay. Here's some compression. And there's an undercurrent that goes like that. Maybe it's related to undercurrents. The compression. Because there's this undercurrent. One goes here, and then something goes right from the corner, though, and up. Although that one I think is more up further. Where was that? If it's below the corner, then it would make sense here. It's at the corner, though. That volcanism is probably... It's gotta be related. Active rifting. Almost looks like a circle there. With like something holding it in place. Rifting. 30 million radiometric dating. Okay, I just took pictures of all these. 10 million. Now we're starting to see this area more take its current shape. So that was quite late to the game. As we see it today, it was very late. according to interpretation. I mean, I tend to accept things of that nature, though. Just not the overall model. So, fault lines again, different sections. Iberia, worth noting. Iberia is, I guess, Spain and Portugal. It looks like it has that inlet we talked about, although it might not be in quite the same location. Right here, like a channel for a current to go from that would etch this way and through here. Looks like it even participated in creating like a bend here, if that's there, and a bend here. It's hard to say if that's a fault line thing that they are drawing or what. But this one ends, the top one. And possibly there's a bottom one there, but there's a gap. It's a little off there with that piece, but so crustal thickness is pretty hard to see. Here's Africa. It's so hard. It's pretty hard to see exactly. I'm trying to exactly see. Let's pull up. Let's just compare now. I guess the really low thickness is here. That's pretty, okay. Oops. Oopsie. So we can kind of see the western section pretty clear in there, as well as over there. We can see that. Interesting here. So here's Greece, and at its center is like a thinner section, like it has a node, adding to the concept that it was a eddy center. Looks, and also these, I would say, add to the general concept that that's how a current propagates, that it moves forward, meets resistance, spirals, until it gets enough velocity from just all the back, as long as there's a continuous feed of current inlet inflow that's overwhelming the back pressures and able to push more current into the space, it will just eddy with higher and higher velocities until it can etch a wave out, generally in the direction that the current is pushing. So it moves to like another node that it etches out and creates these like sequences of greater etching that are patchy and like pixelated. Maybe we can find an example over here. One of these lakes. It kind of has that like motion. I'm not sure where a good example is. Like the way it takes out, punches different sized holes. It's like a hole puncher that has different sized hole punching that then creates a channel. Although I'm not finding great examples. This may not be the best area because it's also got some pre-existing conditions there. Like over here, when it comes over here, it goes through this channel and then opens this space, but it's pixelated. It's not like continued continuous. It's got a connection point, a conduit, opens a space with some various sized eddies, and then it has another conduit, opens this space with various size eddies until it gets out and starts to do that like throughout. That's so like there's all these eddies that are opening the space as the current progresses and generally shaped by the overall circumstances. But that's going on over here, it seems, with the way. It's probably just because the current's becoming turbulent, and but like orderly turbulence where it's like always down, all up, all down, like in unison, and creating more like etching here that keeps it thinner. And then a region where it's not as much downwards, then it's less etching, and then another region. That kind of thing in the overall flow, that's just producing a pixelated effect. That's what I'm thinking. Something of that nature is at play. Lithospheric thickness. So this is interesting over here. Is really thin. Thin pretty much everywhere. Way thicker over here. Just thin everywhere. Really thin in here. Eastern Turkey. Near where that earthquake was, really. Another map of it. Someone else. I think this is someone else's calculations. These are two different calculations. Same scale, two different calculations. Generally showing deeper red over here, so it's definitely thinner there, still thicker there, still just overall thinner. It's had to be overall thinner in this regard. I would say, yeah, like the thinness, especially here, like this from the Black Sea through to like at the Iberian Peninsula and pretty much through to northern. Like this region probably shows some signs of thinner crust, although I'm just thinking over here maybe it's like that kind of thing is having an effect. It's like it's really thinner there. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a correlation that directly. What about this? Weak lithosphere. There's stronger lithosphere that oddly is centered. It's not like over top of Greece, but it's centered at the tip of it, like a separation, a separator, some connection that this eddy here. So one of the things of note is that the African plate is said to be subducting below Greece and Turkey, which is where this eddy is interacting, is here. So it flows in this way, this eddy. Greece and Turkey. Africa is subducting under Greece and Turkey, almost like Greece and Turkey had a eddy centered on them that was causing like flow atop this way and maybe in this way to give an appearance at least of I know there's images that show also something of that nature going on, but maybe this like pulled them together. This eddy here. Maybe the fracture in the ocean floor, the fracture in the continental crust that was a drainage point, led to like a actual drainage point that then formed a whirlwind that participated in drawing this current over and this current over. Like it was part of it that it was draining into below the crust, and that in turn caused the waters to flow towards it, so much so that it compacted the region so that Africa and Europe collided. It's possible something of that nature was going on, because this was the first opening at that time. Like, it was probably stable once the Tethys Ocean formed. It stabilized, but then a new hole formed here. Probably related to these currents, but like once the drain opened, it really pulled the currents through, maybe. Okay, let's keep going. What? Present kinematics wraps around, up, and around, so they're kind of colliding here. I mean, I have it going up this way, but it's also coming across this way. Highly possible that this is related. Like, it basically didn't compact this region as much. This whole region was, rather than being compacted, it had the boundary of this eddy protecting it from this current relatively, and it had thus a like overall force on the terrain that moved it generally this way, and so it is more able presently to just kind of move that way, which is doing significantly because it wasn't compacted in the same way. I wonder if it's related to this point where, like, maybe flow goes up that way and reaches there, where this goes down and this goes up. It's like a connection point. Looks like it's bending around the corner here. Some shallogram looking features. I don't know what to make of that exactly. That. Whoa. Or that. What? What the? I've never seen. I guess it's. I've never seen anything like that. Is that there too? I guess I've seen it. Okay, I guess it's around. Is that like that out here though? Alright, I guess we're seeing it. Okay. False alarm. If that music is annoying, my bad. Guys, let me know if the music is annoying, although it's gonna be a little late by the time I'll make several more of these. Okay, high pressure, low temperature metamorphism. That kind of gave me the vibe of current flows from North American eddies. I don't know if I did an animation of this. Oh yeah, okay. These current flows generally over here in this region and over here are going to go across to Europe. Not just here, they also go across to Europe, out here across to Europe, out here across to Europe. This doesn't just go down this way, it also goes up that way across to Europe. Goes out here, across to Europe. So there's flows and Africa that are water flows on the surface. These are all water flows on the surface that are interacting over here coming from, the point is, North America, which is in the glaciation phase. And so my thought is it's a lot of water flows, high pressure. It's not a lot of temperature though. It's cold water flows because they're from the glaciers. Even though they're getting melted probably by hot water flows, it's making it cold enough that there was a phase that allowed for high pressure, low temperature metamorphism by being present when it was happening. The water that was present was low temperature and high amounts of water to add to the pressure in the formation of these things that are getting compacted. Pressure, temperature. I don't know. So basically just high pressure, low temperature. There were also high pressure, high temperature, I believe. Extensional basins. I mainly took this for names, I think. Just places where it opened up space. Back arc extension started or accelerated rather 35 million years ago. It's almost like the pressure reaching the fingertip, like it's flowing through a structure, but like the bulk, it forms a skeletal structure, like a body, like a hand that has a fingertip that presses into a point, and then the current flows behind that structure and fills it in, and then it like a loading bar reaches 100% at that when it the maximum current flow is at that tip, which then kind of pushes out the boundary of that space and creates these basins, maybe. That's kind of what I'm thinking, especially this one. I don't know. North-south lithospheric cross-section. So high pressure, low temperature in the Eocene, high pressure, low temperature Oligocene, Miocene, ultra high pressure, low temperature Cretaceous. And then Eocene, Miocene. I guess they had high temperature, low pressure, high temperature, low pressure. Maybe in regions that were protected from the water relatively. I don't know why. Further from the collision present. No, they're like right next to each other. Oh no, that Cretaceous is next to Eocene here. Migration of thrusts. feel like the water temperatures involve some reason. I don't know why. Maybe not. This was pretty interesting. Late Cretaceous thrust front, which really started at 42 degrees north until around 35 million, and then went 5 degrees south over the next 30 million to present even. So let's see, 42.5 degrees north is around here. 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 Okay, something like that. Pretty much the top of the present-day Mediterranean. And then it moves south to 37. Interestingly, very close to the center of this. Also, this is, I believe it was this one. I believe it was this one is a volcano, if not a super volcano. Let's see if I wrote it down. No. Let's keep going. We gotta go. How's this going? I can't quite hear it. It sounds like it's on loop pretty bad. Same song for an hour. Maybe not the best choice. Within a convergent geodynamic context, extensional basins have opened after 35 million. So again, extensional basins, here they are opening. So around the eddy space, where the currents are going there, pretty much just where the currents are flowing, and creating space in the region. Maybe it overreacted, like it went too far. It had to close the Tethys Ocean, so it did. But then it went a little too far, so it reopened as the Mediterranean, relatively. That kind of makes sense to me. Like it wobbled, rather than just boop, 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 boop. Like it, you know what I'm saying. Okay. It didn't, and just lock into position and just be there for the rest of the Earth expansion process. It kind of grew, shrunk too far, and then expanded again. And it's really stabilized, although not completely. Again, we see that wrapping around, running into Africa here, so it's almost like that eddy played a major role in this. Almost, I don't know. Some normal faults in eastern Crete. I don't know what the island looks like, particularly. GPS velocity field, like this region is moving fast. 2 centimeters per year is that long. 5 millimeters, so most of this region is not moving all that much. Italy, relatively, is moving a bit. I think it's north, actually. I think it's north. Almost like the bond broke and it's swinging in now. Like it really is similar to the connection between North America and South America. It was like that region. Interesting. GPS velocity field again with Africa fixed. Just showing, like, it's just flowing into there where that eddy was. It's like right where that eddy was. That's most everything that's involved here is in the eddy's region of influence. With these ones, not so much the red ones. This also is just generally the direction the current was flowing, except for it was running into resistance, so it went more this way. But it probably generally was flowing like into this. Over here, though, I think it went more like this way. So I don't know. Maybe there was some degree of flow more like that, like the arrows are. The water did not flow with the arrows entirely, so in this eddy. Active and recent volcanoes, all in a nice little arc there within the eddy, which includes even that one, I guess. Volcanoes where that current bent down and goes back up. Some reason there. Bunch in Italy. All in the region where the bond disconnected, like it's restabilizing on both sides. Very interesting. Geothermal resources in Europe. I found this pretty interesting. It's really hot comparatively under Turkey. Like approaching where the eddy was. As well as where it went through this region. Unfortunately, that's all the map we see, but especially there. Some plants there. Because of how much geothermal energy there is in Turkey. Most of the hottest springs are located far from active volcanoes, so I took a picture of a lot of things just in case, and pretty much every slide, some of these. I think this one's like every slide. But the hottest water is brown, which are generally positioned away from the major faults, or volcanoes. Far from active volcanoes. Which I guess are these ones. Hard to tell what it says. Hot springs are linked with active normal faults. Not sure what to make of that because I'm not too sure what to make of normal faults in general. Let's normal fault geology. Let's just look at the. So just stretching, maybe extension. Yeah, extension. Okay, that makes sense with what we've been saying then. So but the hot springs are linked with the regions of extension, which makes sense also because they're weak points. So if there's water like in steam form coming up through the earth at one of those weak points, that would kind of make sense versus at some region in the middle of the chunk that broke rather than where it broke. More GPS velocity fields with fixed Eurasia. Fixed Anatolia. Interesting. fixed Anatolia. That one I'm not sure what to make of it. It's like going backwards, I guess, because the Anatolia, I think, is right here. So relative to this region's not moving as fast, so it goes away. Relative to this region's moving faster, so it moves away, but it moves like especially down. That's real interesting. Relative to this is moving about the same as Anatolia in the direction Anatolia is moving, but it's also moving down this much. I wonder if there's some eddy there of note. Eigen domain has been extending in a distributed fashion since 35 MA, which is probably when that vortex over top of Greece was able to begin to relieve its pressure. Which forces drive the formation? What is the cause of the localization of deformation approximately 5 million years ago? Deformation here? Okay, guys, I'm just gonna pause that. I'm just gonna pause that music. So it looks like right here, deformation here. Maybe the vortex, as the currents released, like it still had a smaller one here and later formed one here that just went like this out into this current and around, or into the pressure and around, and generally swirled here, causing deformation, if that's the location. $35 to 30. So notice way different. This is and then it blows out, extends over top this. While this is. So that current's going on. It looks like as this current starts to build up, this eddy, that starts to create resistance back here to the current coming in, which leads to building wall here and a wall here by the eddy and this current, which then, like, they keep interacting. 35. So I guess this eddy happened as the water drained. Like post 65 million. Once the earth could expand and then the water could drain out, maybe the water draining out was so eventful that it created things of this nature, where as it drained, it had this effect. Even though this is pretty late game. Like, if water from Canada is sweeping across here and opening this, I don't know. Maybe it's just like the pressure is still there. It's still expanding. It's still applying pressure until it actually reaches enough of a radius to stop. That's pretty interesting there. Displacement since 70 million with Eurasia fixed. Internal displacements are faster than relative plate motions at the boundary of the system. Like in comparison to Africa, from 67 to 0. I don't know, I think he said like it's much more. I don't know. In Europe. Here's the slab going under, or what's interpreted to be the slab going under. I was wondering if it's literally the eddy, like creating like a bowl underneath it that etched to a point where then it physically like caused a current flow down beneath that went over underneath Africa. Like reached down. Here's Greece. And got down and like made its way over here. I don't know. Subducting slab is not a single piece. It is also instead strongly deformed and torn into several pieces. It's underneath Turkey, I guess. I'm not sure what to make of that. Mediterranean slabs. And then this is the end of this. The image is kind of... It's interesting. It's hard to say what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it. This is already an hour. It's already an hour. It's already an hour. Because I have this folder, that folder. Not as many. This one was significantly more. So let's keep going. Fundamentals of mantle dynamics, constraints on mantle flow in the Mediterranean, modeling mantle flow in the Mediterranean. This one was real interesting and had a lot of videos that I didn't take a picture of because there were videos. Fundamentals, okay, and then I took this picture for this in case I was curious. Lots going on here. I didn't know what to make of it because there's just so much going on, and it's kind of cross-sectioned at the Mediterranean relatively. Not sure what to make of it. Post-glacial rebound, so he's talking about glaciers. Don't know why. I don't recall if he was saying... Oh, yeah, that's right. He was saying that the mantle behaves like glaciers, where it can flow. I believe it was the mantle that he was referring to, but he was talking about glaciers as an example. Okay. Mediterranean evolution. So then we're going to see the same motions of those moving in. Oh, that's interesting up there. Whoa. It's almost like a switch is being turned. Like this is closing off this region. This region's about to get closed off and not even be. Where was that? Somewhere up there. I guess here. So I guess there was another lake that this current went forward and reached here even? Initially. But then this current... Oh, actually. But then this current went up here. The one coming out of the center that went around here and then up through the... I think it was this width here. To go up here. And out generally, but also into here. Maybe that played a role. Maybe even the motion of that was related to that, like, emitting energy into that one. Closing that gap, making it bend across. This is the P wave velocity variation. Oh, an almost restricted upper mantle. This was pretty interesting right here. Just like a line across here. East, west to northeast, southwest, trending patterns in back arc region. Not correlated with plate convergence. Not sure what to make of that. Seismic data. Now we see that again. Not sure what those dots are. There's the spreading. I'm just going to go real quick through this unless something really rings a bell. This was definitely really good, but a lot of the content like this was really in video form. And like videos of things of this nature, which were really good, but that's crazy. Mediterranean Arabia circuit. It's almost like it has the momentum from the spiral still contained in the terrain so that it's more likely to slide and like to move in a direction. Like it's actually still moving with the momentum that remains. Hot mantle flowing from Arabia inside Anatolia. From Arabia inside Anatolia. From here, I guess. Which is really from the current going across here, maybe? Like there's current going down here, and current kind of bouncing off it and going up this way to join current going this way until the process stopped. But that current was going that way, so it's kind of deflecting current going this way. And here, that's going like this. Going up generally this way and around. Deflecting here, but also, I guess, going across here into here and creating that, like, an exchange at least. Something where the magma, the mantle, was actually being more directly involved in that eddy flowing to fill in the gap the eddy of water made, maybe. I don't know. I think that's Iberia. Crust, I guess the thinner crust on the east over here. I don't know. I'm just gonna move past that one. Move past this one. Oh yeah, I took a picture of this though because it had what may be current flows in there, over across there. Like there's a relatively showing the current flows with the wrapping around there at the end generally. I'm not sure what these arrows are. Large-scale return flow upwelling beneath Iberia and Anatolia due to downwelling in central Mediterranean. So a lot of things are flowing to, I guess, Italy? Is that where Italy is? I'm not sure. It's hard to say. I don't think the outline's there. If it is, it's real subtle. Oh yeah, there it is. That's pretty much where that super volcano is, I think. So there's current draining to that location and just building a pool of magma, it seems, based on these images. Maybe not creating like enough collision of the current to upwell, like to cause the magma to like spike up through the crust, but there's still like heat, gases venting and creating easier routes, maybe transporting some of the material along where it's got like magma chambers and a risk of a supervolcano eruption. Okay, so that was that one. Okay, so 7 major ions in seawater concentrations follow Thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. Concentration. So if you measure this concentration, then all of these follow based on the ratio. The relative amounts of these ions in seawater is fixed no matter what the salinity is. I'm not sure how absolute that really is, but it sounds like it's probably pretty useful to be aware of and look into more. I don't know. Sequence of precipitation, okay. And then, so this one's about the salt in the Mediterranean. Salt in, oh, interesting, like where the water, I guess, is draining in, it's boiling away and creating salt patches. Maybe. That's my interpretation, is the salt happens where it hit the water, just like waterfalls onto ocean floor that's still hot, maybe not like so hot that it becomes pillow lava, because I don't think the ocean floor is just like a sea of pillow lava, although maybe. But in a way where it just is evaporating the water and depositing large quantities of salt that was in the water. Even though it's not depositing it on land, I don't know. Uncovering the Mediterranean salt giant. 35 million years, so this is what it seemingly was like 35 million years ago. It kind of looks like a big Greece, like if this were to be Greece, but like a spiral the size of Asia, like something, I guess, going this way. I don't know. So Cenozoic salt deposits are pretty much all here, which is 252 to 66. I believe that's Cenozoic. Oh, 66 to present, pardon me. 66 to present, and the Mesozoic then is 262. 266. It's kind of odd that it opened up last on the western side, the basins, but it deposited the salt first on the western side. I find that pretty odd. Also, Paleozoic. Notice where the Paleozoic salt giants in the world are found. We've got the center of Hudson Bay, where the eddy is forming. And then notice where I'm putting this eddy. Along the boundaries of the eddy, like it's depositing along the boundaries. And then it has a current that flows out this way, that then goes over this way. And remember, we literally drew it going over to here at the base, up to the Baikal, over to Baikal, and I guess filling that region. So these are pretty in line with that, and this is all in line with what we've like interpreted about water flows of ancient civilizations' time. And then Mesozoic. So that's the Paleozoic is first. Also here, which I believe is coming off of Africa, like this way. Or this way generally. So maybe it goes this way and back over to here somehow. Or from Australia. Somehow it gets there in the Paleozoic. That one I'm not sure about. I definitely have talked about a current going from that location to the Andes Mountains there, pretty much along here. So a current definitely flowed here and deposited salt along the way. according to this, in the Paleozoic, which was the beginning of the Earth expansion process. So all this was being deposited when the Earth first started to expand. And then, and over here, so this is, we're going to get into Australia soon. I've been doing Australia-related stuff, actually, more so than this, even. I'm like, I'll get through these and do 2 videos tonight. This one's going to be long. At least I'm going to get through all of these after. This is it. Okay. So we got Paleozoic. We got that current. We've got this current going over here also. It looks like it peacefully flows and runs into a resistance at Lake Baikal where a current's flowing across this way. And then it deposits. So it's similar to like there's a boundary that's kind of preventing the flow and maybe causing salt to deposit in certain locations along the boundary. Over here it's just turbulent the whole way, so it's deposit, stop, deposit, stop, deposit, stop, deposit, stop, deposit, stop, deposit, stop, deposit, stop. Some reason I guess maybe because it is able to flow off the edge, it doesn't have as much it has more speed, so it doesn't deposit. Maybe these are actually places where it slows down enough to deposit it. And then the Earth expands, and then we see over here, almost like in the past, that the current is coming out of here etched, like basically from this thing coming out this way across, where was it? Looks like down through here, across that way and this way. This one went around like this. So, like it initially though, it just went out and along this edge line as far as it could go, and then looped back and started to create like a oval. Maybe only so far, like even over here, and then it etched further. In a way though, where it deposited there, and there, and there, and there, and there. And then down here was when it started to drain from the Mississippi region, Mississippi Delta, I guess, and the whole region. Like it was also it was draining through here, draining through here, draining through over here, around this way, just draining into the Gulf like mad, off of North America through this region. Anything that could kind of drain down that way that didn't drain over here. There's mountains here. There's waters over here that were draining out, but like most of this stuff didn't drain through the mountains. It went this way or this way. Once the pressure was relieving, it went the easier routes. So that pretty much covers that. I mean, that one looks highly related to the Hawaiian sphere formation location. I don't know why it would just do right there though. And down there also looks related, but I don't know if that's precisely why that would be there in either of those instances. Then we see down here, Paleozoic way down here. So maybe this current went across, up, and down. And then we don't see Antarctica at all in this. I'm not sure where, like India, the tip of India would have been like over here somewhere. So this would have flowed past India. And Australia at that time might have gotten some deposition on it then. In the Paleozoic salt giants of the world. Okay, Mediterranean salt giant, extreme but geologically brief event from 5.97 to 5.33. That changed the chemistry. So if we think back, that 35 million is when this thing, this eddy that was forming above Greece, stopped forming because pressure was relieving. Then it relieved so much pressure that the water drained back into the ocean beds to a point where maybe, as I believe he suggests, or one of these presenters suggested, that the water dropped down to a lower level and then deposited, it must have been here, deposited the salt in that time frame, and then the water like came back, rebounded. My thought is maybe the water physically drained in a time frame when draining into the ocean was still happening, but this drained early enough that the Mediterranean could drain to a point where it needed refilling from the ocean as the ocean level rose, as like all the water off of the continents drained out. This was draining out too. This drained faster though, and then the oceans caught up to that, at which point it was able to feed back in to the Mediterranean, and there was a salt deposit as a result. Something of that nature, I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Stromatolites, Messinian evaporates. Salinity crisis to desiccation theory for the Mediterranean Sea. I don't remember why I took a picture of that. Like, he must have been talking about details, but I can't remember the details. Okay, time to refill the Mediterranean Sea about 1 year. So, like, it quickly refilled in about 1 year. Is what people are suggesting. That it drained and then had to refill. I don't know. That's something. See, they have it as if the ocean is full and the Mediterranean is not, and it's just trickling in. I would say it's not like that. That the ocean was just not full yet, and the earth was expanding, and water was retreating to the ocean beds, and that this was actually lower as well. I don't know if there's evidence for that in terms of the ocean floor or ocean sea levels at certain times. I mean, it probably is believed to be like they're accounting for it probably, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some nuances that are not being accounted for that are leading to assumptions surrounding the ocean level across time. Since there really wasn't an ocean, like obviously we're missing something. If the Earth expanded, the previous ocean was on continental crust, and then the Earth expanded, and now the oceans are on the ocean floor. Like, we must be missing something in there. It was this depth at this time, this depth at this. Like, I'm just sure there's inferences that are just based on invalid assumptions. That's my point. So this was probably low. So it's a controversy. Did it dry out or not? Others think the decrease was nearly negligible. Some scientists believe the Mediterranean sea level decreased by 1,500 to 2,000 meters. This would leave a salty pond possibly 1,000 meters deep or more. Others think the decrease was nearly negligible. Disagreement is on when and how long the sea level drawdown lasted. Disagreement is also on the way the Mediterranean returned to normal conditions, which was just the ocean level rising, and then it flows in, because at some point, as soon as it starts to flow in, it's reconnected with the Mediterranean as like a single unit, so it just feeds in as the ocean level rises, so it's not like as turbulent or chaotic as it would otherwise be if there was this huge ocean just pressuring against the Strait of Gibraltar and then suddenly it got through. Proposed sites for scientific drilling. Okay, that's that one. I might as well just real quick. This is just about dead volcano. Caldera. Examples. This was just examples. He was saying that this location is much more difficult to forecast. We can relatively forecast stratovolcanoes, but the occurrence of eruption at calderas is much more difficult to actually pinpoint, because it's always doing the things that are deemed signals of a upcoming volcano with stratovolcanoes eruption. Rising ground level of the caldera has risen since apparently he didn't show data for this exactly, but he said the ground has been subsiding since Roman times, and since the 1950s or so, 1949 maybe, it has since been rising relatively in these steps where like rises, fall, and the concern is that it rises again and then rises so much that it erupts. Like an actual eruption happens and then it subsides because there's swelling underneath, lifting it up from pressures underneath, probably from gases, not just from like magma sitting there, but just like all of the pressure combined is pushing up and uplifting. Whether or not it erupts is probably a matter of how turbulent it is. Because if it's just sitting there and gas is flowing out and it's like a pool, it's probably not going to flow out in any magma to erupt. But if there's magma chambers, there are that are actually like being brought to the surface by this gas flow. It's highly possible if it's lifting the ground itself. But it may not be as super volcano-y as it is considered to be. It's got many possible caldera sizes. Huge caldera, many smaller ones. So here's a place that was below sea level, and now is above sea level in 70 years of unrest. And that's it. Okay, I'll link these videos. And let me just see. Did I got anything else? I don't think so. Okay, real quick. Let me just look at my notes here. Basins open while banks active with compressional orogenies. So that kind of compressional orogenies where these dotted lines are compression from the current flows that are compressing. Basins open in those times, so that kind of makes sense that the basin's open while compression is happening. So it definitely is highly related to these water flows that these mountains are even forming, or that they're being amended. Like, all the process definitely has water on the top of the surface involved in the mountain building of the Alps. I don't know why exactly. Maybe that's what happened everywhere. Certainly the Himalayas are being shaped by water completely. I guess the Rockies as well have a lot of water involved. I mean, there's undercurrents for sure, but that maybe that's water too. Water-based, steam-based, pretty much. Like a steam-based undercurrent of magma that's being moved by steam power. Okay, that's all I got for now on this topic. I got Australia to talk about next. I'll see you guys then. Peace.